Hey everybody, today I am joined by Hey You. You may have known him as the creator of King of the Hill Moonshine, King of the Hill Moonshine event, and the co-creator of Stoneyridge and Spookeyridge, as well as a handful of others. Is currently making a push with Payload Extinction on the workshop right now for the 2023 summer update. How you doing, Hey You?
Good. Thanks, Crash. Appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, no problem. We're gonna have a fun little chat about mapping and your history of working on stuff in general. So let's start off the easiest question is how'd you get your start making custom maps for TF2?
Definitely. And one of the reasons I've been excited about doing this is you and I have been friends for a long time and played TF2 initially together. But I would say my first introduction to mapping in high school, I had a graphic arts class every day after school. The internet wasn't that big, so I'll age myself really quickly here. But it was about 1998, and a classroom of 22 people would jump on and play Half-Life or Team Fortress Classic. And I just fell in love with Team Fortress Classic back then. The engineer, the spy, just playing all the characters.
I didn't play it a
When I heard it,
ton, but I did some TFC back in the day. I'm a little younger than you, but not much, and I definitely got my start with like TFC, and I definitely have fond memories of that.
yeah, it was a unique game. There wasn't anything like it with all the different class warfare. And I just generally liked the idea that there was this character that you could create a turret, that guarded an area. So I didn't get that deep. I remember playing for whatever reason 2 Fort a lot, and maybe Dust Bowl we might have played, but it was mostly Capture the Flag. 2 Fort was huge, but those years I dove into Duke Nukem. Had a builder that you could do, and I think Crash you also
Oh yeah, Duke
dabbled in
3D
that,
is
or
the I think it was just the build engine, wasn't it?
yeah. So I created a few different levels. One, I created a full stadium, my high school stadium. It
Nice.
won some awards at the high school level. Like I think they used it for the intro for the morning television
Nice.
show, and they would fly through that. And then I built a mall that ended up becoming one of the top maps on whatever workshop that they had back then.
Oh, that's crazy. Actually, I didn't know that you had that much experience with it. Like my experience, like mind you, to age myself, I was 9 years old messing with the Duke 3D engine, and I think I made like a couple rooms, and I spawned in like a monster. I remember my big crowning achievement was like I made an elevator that worked, and that was about it. That's all I really dabbled in with it. Um, did you actually happen?
It was
There was a pack. I forget. I think it was called the Atomic Pack or something like that. There was a whole bunch of custom maps they like scraped off the internet. Would you have happened to have had anything in that?
there's a good chance that I could have been a part of that. Yeah, I had this full mall that I had built, and I would this again aging myself. I would dial up a friend of mine in a neighborhood next to mine, and we'd play maps against each other. And we would play that mall, and he hated it because I had built a bunch of secret rooms in it, where, where I could even watch him from a camera room. So he
Oh,
played that
nice.
map with me for about 3 or 4 times before he's like, "All right, I see what you've done here."
Yeah, I actually have a really fond memory of being really young, and it was the original Doom, and we my dad had like a connection to the neighbor down the street, and it was like the first time I ever seen a multiplayer game, and it was just absolutely mind blowing. But yeah, I was gonna say though about that pack. That was actually that this somebody released a CD, and actually there ended up being I found out really recently that there was some kind of lawsuit over it because the publisher for Duke Nukem 3D did not actually say they could do this pack. They just scoured the internet for a bunch of custom apps and put it together, and then released it on a CD and like sold it. We had that CD, and those maps specifically, I was just sitting there scouring through them, opening up every single one, running around. A lot of it was like little experimental. Here's a subway that travels around, you can ride, which was crazy for the time. All this experimental stuff, and that actually was one of the early like foundational things that got me interested in community created custom content for a game. So that'd be really crazy if you had something in there and that was me like 9 years old scouring this thing and you happened to be in it already. You were there from the
Yeah,
start if
if you
that's the
came across
case.
this full blown mall, then definitely you would have played my map.
It's possible. I don't remember it, but it's entirely possible because I think I went through every single map that was on there. It was like 100 plus maps or something, and a lot of them I load up for 30 seconds and run around and check them out. But like I said, I was really young, so I barely remember this to begin with. But that's really crazy because to put this in some context, you've always been kind of a mentor to me from the early TF2 mapping scene. I got my start doing stuff for the same server that you were making stuff for, and we played a lot together. And I saw your stuff you were creating, and it motivated me to create things. And then obviously we worked on Stoneyridge, which we'll talk about here real quick. And I learned so much from you that kind of set a foundational thing for me through my TF2 mapping career that I still to this day benefit from. So thank you for that too. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate that. No, I viewed myself as more of having an influence on you. Everything that like once you jumped in the Hammer engine, just kind of became a beast in a couple year or two. So just to fast forward past the time on Duke Nukem 2007, this person, Little Boots, who I ended up rooming with in New York, said, "Hey, there's this Team Fortress 2 coming out." I'm like, "Hey, I remember that, the Team Fortress Classic." Picked up the orange box, and then ended up moving to New York a couple months later, and rooming with Little Boots. And that's when I was introduced to the Hammer editor firsthand. He had actually worked on it quite a bit. He was kind of my mentor to that regard. And we tried to create a couple of maps during that time that we lived together. One of those was actually a payload map that split, the cart track split. And we found a lot of issues with that. And this was, whenever Gold Rush came out, like right after that, we were trying to figure out the split cart. Some map makers have done that since then, but did those couple of maps, and then he got me into the Penny Arcade community, and I found there really wasn't a lot of map makers out at the time. There was a few. The scene wasn't very friendly either. It was just a lot of nitpicking at each other's maps for whatever reason. It's not like it is today. The camaraderie that I see on Team Fortress 2 maps today, especially in the Discord, everyone's working together. And every single time that I've ever reached out to anyone, said anything to anything, it was a very supportive group. So that's one of the things that I've seen change, quite a bit over the years. But that's where I'd met you, in the Penny Arcade community. There wasn't a lot of mappers back then, and was really just trying to find more people to get interested in this crazy hobby that I had. And yeah, luckily you bit, and here we are today.
Right. So I know back then with the Penny Arcade community, you had you did a Halloween pack. And I remember that was like one of the first times I was like, oh, you can make a lot of crazy stuff for this game. I was starting to kind of dabble into custom content for TF2. So then that was like a pack you guys put together. Could you tell me how that came about, and like any kind of stuff you remember? I honestly vaguely recall a lot of it. So anything that you did with that, I want to hear about.
Yeah. So Penny Arcade was really, and I find this is true of most Team Fortress 2 private servers, it's a big drinking game for whatever reason. Just the respawn time is just a great time to drink a beer. You die, you're rewarded, I guess. But
I would know nothing about that. I don't know what you're talking about.
In our 20s, we would, my body would much more friendly doing this. But every Halloween, I remember we would I think everyone would come home from the bars drunk, and what else are you going to do other than play Team Fortress 2? So
naturally.
I remember, I think it was leading up to 2009. I was on some trip, and I was like, you know what? Like, we should take all the Valve maps, decompile them. By the way, it was very frowned upon back then to do this, but decompile them, and we'll dress them up all as Halloween. So Little Boots and I took half and half, went deep, and I think we took Dust Bowl, Bad Water. This is about the time frame that it was. So Bad Water had come out then, so whenever that was, probably a couple of years after the release.
Yeah,
but
not too long.
Granary
was the big one, I remember.
And then, so we will talk about Granary for a second, because I can't find this map pack. I've questioned because this map pack got out, and I started finding it on other servers playing it. And I started questioning, did we have any kind of influence on the whole Halloween thing with Valve? So
yeah, because that's the really interesting part to me, is that your Halloween pack and your like modifying Valve maps to make them Halloween themed predates any kind of Scream Fortress, any kind of like actual official TF2 Halloween stuff at all, which it's really interesting to me.
So something tells me Valve found the road there just like we did. It just naturally made sense.
Right, it makes sense.
Team Fortress 2 was Halloween wise. So, but in any case, I know Granal Probe, which was Granary or Little Boots. I'm gonna give him full credit for this. I made it look Halloweeny, put some pumpkins, and stuff like that everywhere. But he really was the one that made Granal Probe what it was, and what it was when you come in and cap the middle point. A small UFO saucer would come in and pick you up, and then you would fly through this black hole for like a minute fighting with people. And then you get dropped back down if you survive, and then that was it. The problem with it was we found the middle point didn't get capped that well. But I think that there was some influence from this on the invasion pack later on. I'm not really sure.
So that's eagle-eared listeners here would definitely notice a thing that I may have picked up on in the future with my map Probed, which is like almost a direct reference name-wise, which has a UFO which sucks you up and captures you and takes you somewhere else. Yeah, I would say that was definitely directly influenced by, like, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's a fun mechanic, and I just applied it to King of the Hill, which gets captured way more often. And I made it just like a random thing that comes by, and yeah, it definitely had an influence on my map probe that ended up getting in the game.
And such a smart move, by the way, to move it from like a 5 CP that you expanded the whole thing into like a full spaceship. So beautifully executed. I
Thank
actually
you.
wish I saw it got played more. It's like in a weird like custom area. It's like not
Yeah,
part
it's
of the
it's the
normal meta.
like miscellaneous playlist that nobody ever like scrolls down far enough to actually see.
Luckily, we've played it a few times recently on the Penny Arcade server, so I've gotten my fix in. But yeah, so that was cool creating that whole pack and kind of seeing that go out. I don't know where it is today. If anyone has that pack, I would love to see it because I'm just curious if Greenel Probe still exists in some form
Right, I'm
somewhere.
gonna have to dig. I have some old files. I might have to look for that and just talk to the server owner for the House of Nonconformity
So
server that we played it on too. He might have it.
I probably have skipped a step here. Like I mentioned, Little Boots and I worked on a couple maps that really went nowhere. One was a payload map. Another one was like a gravel pit type map, beach setting. Um, Both were really just learning projects.
Oh yeah, you got to have those.
The big project for me that I think I learned the most from and got some recognition from was a project which was Dust Bowl Payload, which I named DB Heights, Dust Bowl Heights. Bringing Dust Bowl to a new level, putting a road into it is just kind of a play on words with the word heights. So I think some people got it, some people didn't, but
I
tried to
never got it,
expand the
to be
map.
honest, until right now.
um, that was just kind of a stupid name, and then I tried to name a few maps after that with the name Heights in it, like Aberdite Heights, which was also just a stupid name, which was also a gravel pit type thing. I think you can find out there somewhere. Horrible map. Um, we all have to go through our teenage years, right? So I think everyone has a handful of just really bad learning projects,
Oh yeah, I've
which
got my fair share.
you have to have them. But anyway, DB Heights was a decent attempt, and what that did is it taught me how to make a good level. So I took a lot of time studying what Valve had done there, and I know that this is an old classic Fortress classic map, but the map still holds up today, and you'll find servers playing it any time of the day. And it's something randomly, like every once a month, I'll jump in to a Dust Bowl server for whatever reason. I just have a love for it. Lots of problems with it. In fact, I've talked to you about this. I think that there's a need to what would Dust Bowl look like, if we were to take it and put it into Source 2, what is
Modernize
that,
it and
modernize that? What would that look like? And at some point in time, I might work on that project, but there's a few variations that people have done actually like that I've seen. Haven't had a chance to try them out, but I'm sure someone out there has actually already done that. But yeah, DB Heights was probably my big one that I really got my feet wet, and I think a few people knew me off
yeah,
of.
I definitely remember seeing that get some play on servers, and I remember just like hearing about you working on it. We were obviously testing it on our the custom app server, and then I remember seeing it around and hearing you get some recognition. I feel like that was where you really broke through, was with DB Heights.
Yeah.
So after that, was that when you started working on Moonshine?
You got it. Yeah, perfect segue.
I know I'm good at those.
So Koth Moonshine came out right after King of the Hill came out, as well as the Swamp Pack. So I wanted to be one of the first swamp pack, kind of King of the Hill um, sets that were out there. I had this vision, fell asleep one night, had a dream about the center house that you see today, very similar form. Woke up the next morning and just started working on that center house. I think I finished it that day, and then formed the map around it. Took a lot of time studying what Valve had done with Viaduct. So you'll see some similarities there with that. And I forgot what the other King of the Hill map.
The dreaded Viaduct formula.
Yeah, and then Nucleus was, I think, was the other one that came out at that time. But yeah, you'll see a lot of maps follow that Viaduct formula. I know Trainsaw Laser.
Oh yeah,
Very similar type.
that's actually part of my tutorial series. Is I teach the Viaduct formula, but I also like try to teach this is a good starting point, but please move on from it because it's pretty overdone for sure. But
yeah, so
those early days we could get away with it more.
You see a lot of King of the Hill maps come out using that formula because it works. It works really well, and you can take that layout and you can redress it in just about any way that you want. So, although Moonshine was not a copy of that, there's quite a bit of a variation if you look at the two of them. It does resolve around that.
And I can see how it kind of influenced the routes, the like leading into mid, and it's a little different for sure. But that's exactly what you want to do. You want to take the base idea and then modify it to be something unique.
Yeah. I worked on that map straight for 16 hours a day for 2 weeks, and then it was live, and I remember us testing it on Penny Arcade. Little Boots, I distinctly remember him a month after it kind of being done, or in RC, going like, hey, this map should be, in the game. When I look back at the project today, it still holds up, but there's some stuff I'd probably change with it. The lighting could use some help, as well as I think some of the structures have aged themselves with the weapons and things like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of it's a good example of an early map and an early kind of detail level. I feel like in general, detail has gone kind of up just a lot since those early days. Obviously, computers are better and things can hold it, but I also feel like there's definitely something to be said for being efficient with your work and making sure it still looks good and is really efficient in that way. And I think you did a good job with Moonshine. Do you feel like, because the Swamp Pack came out on TF2 Maps, they built this pack as a resource for mappers. Do you feel like that was what motivated you to do the Swamp idea, or did you have it on your own, or was it the pack that got you to like
100% the pack? Yeah.
Okay. Do you
Yeah,
feel like those kind of new themes are like a really good way to motivate mappers in general?
I think they are. Yeah. I know we'll talk about Extinction here in a little bit, but that actually has been something that's excited us about that project. Is I would love a couple of years from now to see just tons of dinosaur bones maps, out there. Hopefully it's not too oversaturated, but we've seen some of the Swamp Pack maps, since the release of that, and other ones like the Frontline Pack. There's been a ton of maps that have come out, in that fashion. So yeah, I've loved the Swamp Pack, and the one official map that uses it did really well was the Mountain Lab. Beautiful map, that really used those swamp assets really well.
Oh yeah. So after Moonshine, I know we worked on Stoneyridge, but I really want to briefly talk about Moonshine event. I know Moonshine was like 2009, 2010 is around when you worked on it and released it. And then we took quite a while before Moonshine event got put in, and it was 2015. You and I actually worked on that project and then added to it. Obviously, we had the base of Stoneyridge, which we'll talk about next, that came between that. But how did you feel about the whole process behind Moonshine event and bringing me to work on your baby, sort of?
Yeah, it's funny. I've taken a few spells of retirement now from Hammer. And I think you've actually taken one
Yeah, I took a
that I
little
actually
break.
read in your comments at one point. Kind of made me a little bit sad. I'm like, game age would do that probably. But
Yeah.
in any case, yeah, it was always just kind of like feeling like I'd put a lot of work into the game and not a lot of recognition. So thankfully, you had reached out to me, I think in 2014 or 2015, right before it had gotten picked up, and said, I think there's a potential here for this map to be made into a Halloween map. And in fact, I have a vision for an underworld for it. So you basically said, let me take it, I've gotten a couple maps in the game already. I know what Valve's looking for. I can shape it up for you. I hadn't gone through that process of optimization all the way through, or submitting something to Valve. So you had taken that, and then you also added the underworld. You pulled me out of retirement, and I
I
had to
keep doing that to you.
I had to learn Hammer again, which is usually like a week or couple day ordeal. Getting back up on the bike. Turned everything into Halloween, so I think everything on the top world is mostly me. There's some stuff that you've added to that, of course. The ghosts flying through and stuff like that. You encouraged me to add all that, and then you added this beautiful underworld, and then, like I said, you optimized the crap out of it, updated the lighting, made everything look very polished
And I
at the
know
end.
I
So,
added the Wheel of Doom to the map, which is like the
yes, yeah,
big
yeah,
gimmick that I think when I started working, I was like, I feel like the Wheel of Doom is a cool mechanic, but it's really just a really deathmatch heavy like idea for Halloween. So what would be a really fun map that would just be a big open deathmatchy area in the middle that you can be like flying way high in the air with the spells and just chaos. And I was like, man, Moonshine has that really big open mid, and it worked out beautifully for it. I think you can see the big tower in the middle, you can see the spell, the wheel going off, and all that kind of thing, and it provided a really fun base for all like the Halloween shenanigans. So I think that's why I was like really excited to do it on Moonshine specifically.
yeah. It's got somewhat of a following. I've heard. I will find a 24/7 server playing it, although it's never full. And then I love joining the map every Halloween, kind of introducing myself and saying hi to people.
Oh yeah, that's
Very
probably like the
scout.
funnest thing is to just like jump onto the game on a map that is getting actively run, especially during these like big events where everybody's really hyped for them.
Yeah. People generally don't care. They're like, "Oh, like, who are you?" But it's been fun just kind of seeing people experience something that I made so long ago. So I appreciate your help on that and kind of pulling me out of retirement. I think I told you that the map probably wouldn't be in game if you went and had said like, "Hey, you need to get back to this."
Right.
So yeah, I can't remember where Stoneyridge lies in that
So
region.
Stoneyridge was, I believe you started the project in 2011. So it was after Moonshine, and I believe at the time it was actually the Art Pass contest came out on TF2 Maps, and that was what spawned Man Manor and got the other map that I'm drawing a blank on the name right now.
Yep, that's
That
right.
one. Anyway, there was the two Art Pass entries that ended up winning and getting put into the game. And while that was going on, you were like, "Hey, let's do an Art Pass of our own. I'm going to make a base map. I'm going to bring on." We had Zizzy was an active mapper on the Penny Arcade community. Then myself and you were like, "I'm going to make my own team. I'm going to make my own base, and then you guys can Art Pass it." That was the original idea, I know. And for the most part, you did do the base of it. But that was a really long project. That we ended up. I think you did most of it. There was so much iteration to the map that I learned from. Like I know at one point, just like we always talk about the whole last area where you just completely decided to mirror the last, and I can't even imagine it mirrored the other way now. But at the time, it was such a crazy idea to like I'm just gonna flip everything, and that was something that I really learned from a lot. To not hold on to things and make them this has to be in there this way because I put all the time into it. That's something that has helped me over the years so much to learn to scrap or change work. And that right there, that moment was like the source of that.
Yeah, so yeah, that's right. So I worked on Stony Ridge right after Moonshine, sometime after Moonshine. The Art Pass project had come out, and I spent a lot of time with it, like really considering it. I have a motto, which is um, don't race for last place, don't compete for last place, is what it is. And I had viewed this as one of those situations where you're trying to cram yourself through the door with like 40 other talented people. The chances of your work never getting seen very high.
Oh yeah.
So, and every ounce of me wanted to change the layout of that map so bad. And I think people still see it today that the layout is flawed in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what I would do to fix it. I tried to figure it out, and I just felt like I spent too much time with it. So I said, you know what? Um, there's a group of up and coming mappers on Penny Arcade. Why don't I do the thing that Valve just did and I'll create a layout that I think is worth a crap. Sorry to crap on the Valve map. Not something I wanted to do there, but in any case, as something better, more constructive, and there's a higher chance that we'll make something unique here that's not like the other 40 other prototypes, and there's a higher chance of that'll get put into the game. So um, I think I had created an early version of Stoneyridge. It actually had a train that you could ride, which I've seen as a huge thing that people have done. I think
Oh shit!
Overgrown.
Did you do that? Yeah, I honestly kind of forgot that that was an early version of it, but I definitely put that into Overgrown, and I'm wondering if I was influenced by that. I didn't even realize it.
And I hope I'm saying the name right, but Rotunda also does that, which is
Rotunda,
a
I believe.
Rotunda. Yeah, great Koth map that just came out. Also has a train that you can ride. So I've seen and I'm sure that there's a lot of others that I'm not mentioning, great maps out there that I'm probably missing. But cool concept, right? Why not? And I think Freight even had something where you could like ride it sideways, so it was nothing new, right? But an idea where you could maybe ride it to the second point. That concept never stuck in because obviously everyone's just going to ride the train every single time.
Right.
And the randomization people don't like, which is something that we ran into with Geyser or Extinction, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later, the random geysers. But yeah, made that. And then I think I started handing it over to you guys, which is about the time that we realized there was something flawed with the layout. The map was a little too lopsided. And I kept thinking we need to kind of have people cross across the middle somehow. So why don't we just mirror everything? Um, how quickly that map was mirrored showed me that you could actually do facelifts like that really quickly, which is something that I did in Extinction many times that people don't really realize of like adding extra gaps and things like that, which is generally frowned upon, which I don't encourage anyone to do. But I think in that map we were still in dev texture mode. The art pass hadn't really started at that point. So
I know
the
that's
second that
that's
we
definitely a benefit of the Source engine and working with Hammer that even modern engines have a hard time with is like being able to dramatically iterate a map quickly. The amount of times that I've just grabbed something, changed it dramatically, and it was working 5 minutes after that is insane compared to another engine that you would have to fiddle with a lot of different things, and that's kind of one of the benefits of working with brushwork in general.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard that. I guess something you can't do with Unreal Engine as easily. So yeah, we changed it and it seemed to work out. Unfortunately, I think the age of that map is shown now because we were developing it again right around the time that the Art Pass map was coming. So there's thin hallways, things like that. When you compare it to something like Gorge that had just come out, which it was heavily modeled behind. I made sure that the length of things fit Gorge. If you think about all the playtesting that Valve does, and this is something that I always encourage other mappers to think about, they've already gone through having playtesters at their fingertips. And I can just imagine a mapper in a room coming out and go like, hey, all right, I need you guys to run 50 rounds of this, and just do, and watch it over and over again and have them report on that. We don't have that luxury as mappers. I had a little bit of that luxury at the very end of Extinction. Was getting about 4 demos a day, which I was able to make some huge changes. But back in the day, we just couldn't do that. So you have to take some of the things that Valve have learned about distances of things, distance from spawn to point, mirror those things, make everything else in between different. But I think you can copy some of those things directionally and use some of that feedback that they've gotten from multiple playtests.
I know a technique that I've always liked to use is usually Pyro is a good base because it's kind of a medium speed class. But I would spawn and I would start a stopwatch and I would run to the first point and I would end the stopwatch and I would see what that runtime was and I would try to mimic that with my maps. Like obviously it didn't have to be down to the second, but if I was a few seconds faster, a few seconds slower, then I'm considering myself nailing it. And if I'm maybe pushing it a little bit too far, maybe I'll think about moving the control point, a little bit closer, or a little bit further away, depending on what that stopwatch was telling me. So I can definitely see how that's a really really useful tool.
Yeah, so I've used that ever since then. Unfortunately, I think it probably creates patterns with maps. You feel like you're getting a little repetitive. But again, as an early mapper, you might as well use that tool
Oh yeah,
for some of those early maps.
I think it's always a balance of I think that the saying goes like, great artists copy. It's always a balance of copying the right things, but still making them unique enough that you're providing a new original experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after we did Stoneyridge, that was a long process. I think we started it in 2011, and I believe RC1 or RC2 was 2015, which is like 4 years on a map is pretty crazy, but it makes sense. And like we passed it around a ton. I know we would just like pass the VMF over between the three of us that were working on. It was me, you, and Zizzy. And like Zizzy was working on the lighting, and he would have it for a couple weeks, and then he would pass it to me, and I would start doing detailing in a specific corner of the map, and you would get it, and you would do some detailing, and in the end, we came up with this really cool map. But the process definitely dragged a bit. Um, and then it was like a few years, or during that time, it was like right shortly after we released that. Then we worked on Moonshine Event, cranked that out. That got added to the game. Then it was a few years after that, I was like, hey, let's talk about doing Spookeyridge. It was 2017. We ended up putting out Spookeyridge. And I think I had a cool idea. It was around the time, I want to say Stranger Things had come out around then. And I had the cool idea of doing like an underworld that was a mirror copy of the main map, but just like broken down different.
Yep.
It was supposed to be the upside down equivalent. And then I think I learned once we got into the project, I was like, oh, the map was already pushing limits on its own, just being a map by itself. But when you copy the entire map and put it underground, turns out there's a lot of limits you hit doing that. So it ended up getting scaled way back from the original idea. But honestly, I think it benefited from it a lot. And I know that was 2017. And I think around that time is when you pretty much kind of tapped out of TF2 for quite a while.
Yeah. There's one other project I should probably mention, and I really want to get your take too on Stoneyridge. I know you talked through a little bit of it, but just curious of other things that you learned. But there's a map I'll talk about for 1 second called Payload Race Secret Project, and I'm
Oh
not sure. I
yeah,
think this came out in 2014-ish, like right around the time when we were working on Stoneyridge. I think you guys had taken it to detailing stage, but I found the payload race mode to be flawed and was trying to fix it. So I did a two stage payload race map called Stoneyridge, and it was very similar to Sawmill.
secret project, not Stoneyridge.
Yeah, secret project. Thank you. So the project was very similar to Sawmill, as the carts would come into the middle, they would cross, and then they would go up a ramp that was right by two saws. So it created this kind of cool grind dynamic where the carts would fall back, and most of the time people would get blown or pushed into those saws. And then the second stage was this hole that you would get sucked in as you push the carts up and around it. I don't know if you remember that at all, but
It's really vague because I know I think you got in like the mid alpha stages of it, and we tested it a lot, but I wasn't involved in it much, and I think I played it like probably weekly for a year or something, and I don't remember a whole lot about it, sadly. But I do remember though when you said the
yeah.
saws, I do remember that mechanic was really fun. How you were like right up close to them.
I had gotten very close. I had the whole thing detailed. It had gone through the art pass,
Oh, okay.
and
Damn.
for whatever reason, I've lost it. So if anyone has something called Payload Race Secret Project, any version whatsoever, please contact me. Send it to me.
We'll dig through the
It's just
archives. I'm sure we can find somebody.
just a lost map out there. But yeah, so past that, I think I'd taken another break. Extinction was started in 2016,
Oh yeah, that's
so
right.
um, very beginning of 2016 had this idea. I don't know if we should jump into Extinction yet, but that's about the year that came about. But yeah, before we do that, let me jump back to Stony Ridge.
The timeline's all boned now.
It's all back to Stony Ridge. Just like your impression, your thoughts, receiving that project at that point in time. Just would love to hear your thoughts on that project.
Like the early days of it, or
Yeah.
I definitely like I said, I think that whole project in general was such a foundational thing for me as a mapper. Because at the time I really didn't have much out. I was working on my beginning stage maps around the time we started the Stoneyridge project. I don't think I had anything really substantial out. Maybe I think I might have worked on like Sub Zero if you remember that, like the map that started with the submarine and
Yeah,
was
I do.
ice and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I was really just starting to kind of make a name for myself at that point. But that just the project alone, it was really fun to work on a collaboration where I had other minds doing big chunks of the map, and then I could kind of key off of those. It helped me think of mapping in a whole different context of just having to be a thing you do by yourself and you grind out every little aspect because working on the source engine is tedious. There's no way around it. Like there's a lot of tedium in creating a map. They are hundreds and hundreds of hours generally pumped into these things. So getting to divide that off was kind of an eye-opening experience. And I mean, even today, almost all of my maps are collaborative projects now. And I think playing off each other's strengths was a really, really good lesson to learn. Like you had the gameplay at the time you were really focused on, and Zizzy was doing lighting, I was doing detailing, and it all kind of came together. Obviously, we all did little things here and there over the whole map. Like we weren't really delegated, but it all came together into this one project that was the sum of all of our parts. And I think that was a really really cool thing to learn early on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely encourage the teamwork aspect as well. How long would you say you've worked on tons of maps now, start to finish? If you were working full time, 40 hours a week, how long would you say it takes to
Oh
make them
God.
like the average map, like a two stage attack defend map?
I think it varies so much. It's really hard to come up with any kind of concrete, like even rough estimate. Not even a concrete estimate, a rough estimate. I've had maps that I would crank out an entire layout in a week, and then that layout is there, and it's almost like pretty close to, obviously not close to final, but it's close to the overall layout. And then you just sit there and refine and iterate it. I don't think I've ever had a project take less than it's so hard to say, honestly. I think I've gone back to so many projects that like I started and worked on them for months and months and months and tested them, and then I just dropped them for years, and then picked it back up, and then we like cranked out the rest of it. I think in general, just you would expect hundreds of hours into any map. That's probably the best I can do.
Yeah, definitely. Extinction for me, and I've talked to you about this. Worked on it after work in most of 2016. Um, November 2022 was laid off. Great thing to happen. Gave me an opportunity to sink my teeth into this. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but full time since sometime in November 2022 to today, I've been working on this thing 50 plus hours a week.
Damn.
So 6 months, for a payload map. I think King of the Hill, substantially shorter. And
Oh
it
yeah,
really depends on how
definitely.
many custom assets you have, in it, and how the sky's the limit. So you could spend all day just making everything custom. But yeah, that would be my answer. Is like an average of like 3 to 6 months, probably depending on the size of the project.
And see, I know like my like projects that I've worked on, like Shore Leave, where it was a very heavily collaborative project. Like I spent months on just the layout, and that was probably almost a year of work on just the layout, and then we went over to detailing and being such a big long form payload map. There was a lot of detailing that went into it that my partner Freya did. That was probably I want to say that was probably a 2 year project alone. Granted, there were some weird circumstances with it, and she was out for a while where she couldn't do anything on it at all. But yeah, they're big projects, definitely, especially big payload maps. And Extinction is a really cool, very pretty map. So I'm really excited that you got to come back and do that. Well, actually, we could probably start tangenting to that. So like after Spookeyridge in 2017, you started Payload Geyser in 2016. We did Spookeyridge in 2017, and then you kind of took a break from there, and you were just like mostly just focusing on like life and your family and your job and stuff like that, which you actually worked in marketing, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I don't know if it was the best decision. I kind of wish I would have kept working on stuff, but I think TF2 seemed to hit what a lot of people refer to as like a dark period, from like 2018 to 2022, or sorry, 2020. I think COVID brought a few players back in. I even found myself playing a little bit during that time, just kind of popping in. But yeah, took a massive break, just focusing on family and things like that. So
How was it
I
like
was
coming back to the mapping scene after taking such a long break? Like, did it? I know I had to guide you through some of the new tools and stuff like that, but was it a bit of a culture shock? Like everything was so different from when you left.
it was it really was. Discord was new to me, and I had to trace steps back to find that around 2017 to 2020, all the forums disappeared and really went to Discord. So you can just view Discord as this kind of this fast moving forum, in a way, which is what Slack is, for businesses. So nothing new. I had Slack channels at the companies that I worked at, through marketing and data and advertising and things like that. But never had I seen this level of collaboration before. So in 2020, actually, I was also laid off, and tried to start a few businesses of my own. Tried to create a tower defense game during that time, and I swear if I'd have known Discord existed during that time, I probably would have gotten it off the ground. So um, actively working on that now. That old tower defense game, which we'll talk about in the future, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, everything had changed. Team Fortress maps. All of a sudden, I'm like, "Where's everyone online?" And then I realized they're all in the Discord. So you get in there, and then Square, which is one of the team members we'll talk about, heavily encouraged me. He's like, "You need to start a Discord channel so that we can all talk together." The second that we did that, everything just seemed to really, really accelerate. So that was one of the big changes. Hammer plus plus. You had to hold my hand quite a bit through that,
I know
and
Compile Pal was a big one because I think when you left, I don't think we were using Compile Pal yet. So when you compiled a map and you were ready to release it, like you had to manually build your cube maps, you had to manually pack the map.
yeah,
There were so many steps, and now that it was just like, oh yeah, just set this up and click compile, and it'll just do everything. And you were like, wait, what?
yeah. So the vision of Extinction, or what was called Payload Geyser, had haunted me for a while. I guess we could go and jump into
Yeah.
kind of the story of Extinction if you want. But yeah, started in 2016. Jukebox, who provided the Moonshine assets, the actually Moonshine rigs that you'll see in event, um, asked him, "Hey, I've got this idea for this dinosaur map. I think one, Team Fortress is kind of getting away from its core. Like, I really want those classic maps back." And I was feeling this in 2016, by the way. So 7 years have passed, and I'm feeling that from the community, or that response from the community even more today. So I'm really happy to hear the feedback there. But yeah, it just kind of wanted the desert industrial feel again, and I felt like there was room for these geysers to come in and these dinosaur bones. I've mentioned this before. The idea initially, I hate giving Disney any kind of props, but as a kid, I was brought to Disney World constantly, and one of my favorite rides was Big Thunder Mountain, or Great Thunder Mountain, I guess, depending on which region you're in. And it's this ride that takes you through what looks like a Team Fortress 2 style map. If you've never seen it, highly encourage you to pull it up and look at it. There's like a map waiting to be made, which is kind of what Extinction is. And at the end of it, you ride underneath this T Rex skull and these rib cages, and you ride through these geysers. So I'm like, hey, there it is. There's the theme. As we'll pull in kind of all these assets that are on Big Thunder Mountain and make a map. So we started on that in 2016. Just Jukebox and I worked on it for a better part of the year, actually play testing it on Penny Arcade probably every Friday afternoon. And then I hit a problem at the end of the year where it was a two-stage map. I felt like Gold Rush was broken. It was just too long. What if we pull out the middle stage and make it two stages? First stage is 2 points, second stage is 3 points. See how that runs. And as I developed and got the second stage in, people would um, complete the first stage and get into the second stage, and every 3 minutes, a different player would crash out of the game.
Hmm.
And I couldn't fix the problem. No clue. Today, I've recognized that there was probably something that people were staring at on that side of the map that was causing a crash. After doing a lot of research on it, I attributed it to it being this funky two-stage thing that the game had never seen
The
before.
source engine gonna source engine.
Right, and that's not the case. You could build that if you really wanted to, but And I had already done it for Payload Race Secret Project, so that's where that fallacy goes out the window really quickly. But I just decided to wipe everything on the second stage and make it into a single stage payload. It works really well
Oh yeah,
already.
the map plays great. So I think that was a great decision, and that's a good example of like not just because you put the time into it, don't commit to an idea. If you feel like you can make something better by scrapping it, like scrap the hell out of that, and it definitely benefited on Extinction.
Definitely, you can see some the old bones left, I guess, from that 2016 work. The first two stages are slightly shorter because, again, those were meant to be kind of a solo stage. The map has been expanded quite a bit. So if there's an old video you can find of Geyser being tested. And if you look at that, it just looks like a small shoebox compared to what it is today. It's actually a huge map. And slowly kind of have fixed some things. Even RC version that's coming out later this week will fix a few of the issues that have small last little things that we've seen. I think we'll fix that.
Real quick, actually, what's the team? Because this is the big project. This is your big like summer 2023 project. So I definitely want to make sure we talk about this a lot. Who's on the team and like what are their roles and everything? Like I'm kind
Yeah,
of on the team, but not really. But get to that to the end.
you kind of always have been because as I went to film with a good friend of mine a pilot, and I know I've mentioned this to you. So I show up on the pilot, and Richard Dorton is there. He's the host of the show, and I'm at a table read with four other people, the two directors and Richard. For those who do not know Richard, Richard did all the mocap work for Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. He's in the trailers. The only characters he didn't do the mocap work for was the witch and Chloe, I believe. All the female characters in 1 and 2. They did by someone else. So I even had him firsthand show me how he acted out each one of those. I came off that set meeting people that actually had played my maps before. And the show was a very video game based show. Unfortunately, I can't talk to it about it because I'm under NDA. In the future, I can, but hopefully it comes out. But coming off that set, I was invigorated, and I remember talking to you, and I was like, man, I really should like get Geyser going. And you're like, do it, do it, do it. So you were the big facility encouragement for me getting back in,
It
and
dragged you back in.
yeah, you set me up with all the tools and everything that I needed, got me back up on the bike. It took about 3 days, and then I felt like nothing had changed from the last time I had touched the program.
There's definitely
So
something about Hammer that is just so intuitive, like you said, exactly like riding a bike, where you might go like, oh, how do I handle these little details, and like you got to get your bearings again, but then the muscle memory is just there. The amount of time someone will ask me like, hey, how do I do this keybind? I'm like, I don't know, I just do it, and then I have to like physically go into Hammer and press it because
mhm.
I'm so used to just doing it.
And it was funny, my fingers just started doing things like automatically hitting Z. Like I think we're all aware of just you're just constantly hitting Z. I have really bad carpal tunnel this year from working on this just nonstop, and I think it's the ASWD motion, as well as spreading your fingers out. And I'm an older guy, so I've been working on computers most of my
You
life.
need to take a break from this map after after this is
I do,
ARC.
but yeah, just to talk about the team members, as I mentioned, Jukebox, him and I went through this 3 week nervous period of trying to contact him. I'm like, oh my god, this project's never going to come about. Luckily, it was on Team Fortress 2 Maps. Again, thank you to Team Fortress 2 Maps for creating that space. I downloaded that and decompiled the original Geyser version. So it really accelerated me getting back into it. All the old work was there immediately. Found old Geyser particles from Little Boots. He was also the third member that worked with us in 2016, so I missed him. Little Boots, as I mentioned early on, was kind of my mentor. He helped me get help layout, things like that. So he's one of the advisors or team members today. The original Geyser particle that was used in 2016 was made by him. Also, early test this year were done by him. You introduced me, or someone reached out to me by the name of Square, which I think we've talked about a couple times already. And I didn't really know where Square's place was going to be in this map, but he seemed very willing, to be a part of it. And then everyone that I talked to was just like, he's one of the best artists that you'll see.
So,
So
so I remember with Square specifically because I was like, you said something about like maybe you had some like really big ideas, and I was like, hey, this modern era of TF2, people are getting concept artists now to like sketch up some ideas, and you were kind of hesitant. You were like, I don't know if I really need a concept artist, and I was like, just give this guy a shot, check out his work. I've worked with him a bunch. We worked together. The Saxy project. We worked together on Frontline. He's done a bunch of artwork for my band. I have a giant tattoo on my forearm that he drew. So he's somebody that I really like his artwork and I really appreciate what he does. And I'm like, just give this dude a chance. And I remember he cranked out like the first sketch, and you were like, oh, holy shit, sold, done. You're on the team. Like, do more of this.
yeah, no, and I think that opening image when it comes out, like I had kind of done something, and then he took it and made it look like it does today. So Square is responsible for all the textures that you see on all the rocks, all the floor, the siding, the cracks. All that is him coming up with the color. Of course, we reused Valve's textures and recolored them and recoded them. Um, all the signs on the walls, those are all Square. All the redoing of the bulletin boards, the chalkboards, the storyline, Eli Boone, all those things are Square inspired. And then he made me a better mapper by going through it afterwards and going like, hey, you should really change out this color here, move this thing over here. Doing quick draws, ups of certain things. There's still stuff in there that he wants me to change that I've just gotten to a point where I can't work on the map anymore.
having
So sorry,
having like
Square.
a visual artist like that, I think helping you with a project is such a it's like a third party that can take it from a visual perspective rather than a mapper perspective. Because when you're deep in Hammer, you're not thinking about how the composition of the colors are working necessarily as much as someone who draws things on a 2D plane who can back up and say, hey, do it this way instead, and it's going to look way better. And like the value that something like that provides to a map visually is insane. And he actually he did some concept for Brian too, and that was what really set it off for like the core visual aesthetic for the map Brian was his concept art.
Yeah, my partner came over and looked at some of the stuff, and she was like, "Wow, yeah, you've got an artist on your hands now. Like you're finally doing this the right way." My ego generally has gotten the best of me in my younger years. So just listening to you and go like, "Hey, you should really probably build a team around this." And now that I look back, this project would not have been at the stage that it is today without this team. Definitely played my role, creating the map. I'll take credit for the layout and stuff like that, but I can tell you the art and this team too has helped with just every step, and even the layout they've helped out with. So um, the next team member is non-human. So we were looking for at the time we were already thinking about the event version. We have some big ideas for the event version. I won't really talk about that now. We can at the end, maybe if there's some time, but um, there's this idea of these live dinosaurs essentially. So we had an idea of an underworld where comets are raining down while your small little comets are kind of flying through the air um, as you're fighting this large dino. So we reached out to a few people and ended up getting introduced to non-human. So I think, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get his name wrong. Gumpy ended up introducing him, and he produced for us a small set of meteor showers that were beautiful. And then ended up going like, hey, you should really have like a custom explosion at the end. So he created a custom lava explosion at the end, which you see today. Recognized that the geyser particles could be improved. So all the geyser particles that you see in there are him. The smoke too that come off the geysers really did a great job there. He has a lot of what are they called? The hats that.
The unusual effects.
Thank you. Yeah. He has created a lot of those, so he's had a lot of experience with the particle systems. If anyone's worked with that, I've tried to work with it based on the work that Little Boots did. It's like a foreign language.
Yeah, I've
Um,
opened up the editor and I was just like, nope, I'm not. I can't.
it's not super intuitive, so just having his ability there. He also made everyone on the team better from a technical standpoint. Jukebox would post stuff, and he's like, actually, you should rethink about how you're doing this. I can't technically relay what he improved there, but it was always, just asking about the LODs, I guess, for example, and things like that. So, um,
There's
and then
definitely so many like technical things that no one person is going to know everything about the Source Engine one, and everything about all the little visuals that make a map look cool. So having all these different people who have their own areas of expertise, so you had like Jukebox doing models, Square doing art, non-human doing particles, you're doing the hammer work, the gameplay layout, detailing, that kind of stuff, applying all their things, having that like team to be able to build off of and just run by ideas by, just it's you can't calculate how beneficial that is at all. It's too much.
yeah, the feedback. I can't tell you. Again, the map wouldn't look like it does today, or it would have taken me about a year and a half to get to like wind and weave and get feedback from the community and stuff like that. So, um, everyone has made a huge impression on this. He also gave layout feedback. Like there's a small little what was an island, small little lower portion by the river that was added. That I don't think the map would be as good today if it didn't have that little thing added, and then some other key changes that he's definitely stood by, and he loves the map too. I've never seen someone just like love a map so much. So um, if you guys are looking for some great particle work, reach out to Non-Human.
I
Um,
think actually some important context too for the map when you came back, like when you started working on it again, we didn't know anything about summer maps happening. It was we were expecting Halloween, Smithmas. That was it. Like for the most part, like that's the only maps that were getting accepted. So you had the event version in mind from the start. Did
yeah,
you have to pivot when the summer stuff got announced? Is that the point that you started focusing on it more, or were you planning on doing the core version and then eventually working on the event?
no, I think my ego again just had gotten the best of me. I had walked off that set. I think I mentioned this to you as well. The director of choreography and stunt work for Everything Everywhere All at Once was also on that set, and I got a
Oh,
chance to
nice.
talk to him and meet him along with other people. I'd met this guy that was on the Parks and Rec, like Dewey for Parks and Rec. Kif Vanderpulf. I don't know how to say his last name, but anyway, just met like all these great people, and the power of that set, I swear, today has lived on into Extinction. I keep writing the people from that set, going like, "Hey, thank you for the enthusiasm," because again, between them, you going do it, that this map probably wouldn't be here today. So initially, when I came back and started working on this, I knew the vision of this would be something that was stellar, or I hoped for it. And I don't want to sound too cocky or anything, but I knew the Team Fortress 2 community would love it. And the vision that you see today is very similar to what is there, other than probably C or D. Those are new things that I never thought would come about in the form that they did. I don't know. I had this weird feeling that there would always be the summer update coming. When I got done with the map, I was planning on reaching out to Valve and going like, "Hey, I did this. Like, I think the community is going to love this. What can we make around it?" So there's the Eli Boone video. If you guys haven't seen that, definitely go check it out. Um, we Square created this character Eli Boone, so created this minute long kind of voiceover. Hired a voiceover actor.
My mama, God rest her soul, used to say to me, Eli, you eat up, work hard, and one day you'll be a big man in these parts.
Took a long time to find a guy. Actually, cycled through like 10 people before we found Anthony that did this voice for Eli, and he just nailed it. Um, again, the vision today, I had a feeling would probably get added into the game if I was able to nail it right. The problem is there's so many great maps that are out there.
Right.
Frontline, your map, Shore Leave, and I know there's a large team that worked on that. That's a stellar piece of work that has gotten passed over for whatever reason. Oasis, and there's tons of maps. I don't mean to just um, shine light on yours, but
Oh
there's
no,
tons of maps.
continue. Carry on.
There's tons of maps though. Like Big Joey, I think is his name. Released a couple of. I hope I'm getting that name right. A couple of years ago, like an hour's worth of footage of maps that should be added in the game. And my mouth was on the floor. Like, why weren't any of these added? So, I don't want to come off as cocky, going like, hey, the Extinction should get added. I think it did. But for whatever reason, I just felt like there was this summer update coming after everything that had happened with Halloween. So I don't know if you believe in something. I guess it'll happen.
You
But
manifested this.
I think what I saw is the team was very gung ho on event, and I'm like, let's just get this summer vision out. And the second that you wrote the letter, Valve responded. That's when I think the team's vision pivoted to, oh yeah, okay, summer. Let's focus on summer. Although I think there's something great there with event, like, and I think we should do it. Probably release it next year. Like, give a little space for Extinction to the regular version to live, especially if it is added for some lucky reason. And again, there's just so much competition. I don't want to be that assumptive at all. Hopefully it is. Hopefully it is in the future, next 5 years or so. But in any case, yeah, I didn't really have to pivot that much for the vision that it is today.
So, do you definitely feel like Extinction from your core concept? Do you feel like you saw it through and that core concept stuck through all the way, and that this is like the best case scenario for that idea at the beginning?
I think it is. Time will tell. If it's able to get more play, which would be great. I will. I'm planned and prepared to change things in the future, small things if needed. I think players get used to environments, and when you start removing hallways, they get really upset. That happened at the very end of Extinction. There was a hallway on D that was very necessary to remove, and you can see it today. But that first reaction was very visceral to I think end of the line server had played it and they're like, nope, 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 not standing for it.
Yeah, actually,
So
I think that is a problem. Is the more you play test, the harder it is to make changes. Just like community wise, the people who've been playing it, and they suddenly are like, hey, I had this route that I love to use. I used it all the time. Why is it gone? It's like, oh, it was kind of powerful, and that's why you used it so much. Like,
exactly. Yep. So, and I've seen a couple comments about that of, hey, I play tested it early. Sad to see some of this stuff go, but I now understand, why you did what you did. So it's always hard
I
to.
think that is definitely something that separates like an experienced mapper from somebody who's really just getting the hang of it. Is learning to make those kind of hard calls.
Yeah. Layout is my thing. Frasier, who you mentioned earlier, and I meant to give this call out earlier, like, man, someone I aspire to be able to detail to the
I
level
know,
of.
right?
I had to have a team of people to detail Extinction to the level it is, and I still feel like it doesn't stand up to some of the work that I'm seeing her produce on Brine and some of the other stuff that I've seen her produce. So kudos there, and anyone that is able to detail. I am not a detailer. I'm a fake detailer. I'm really good at copying what Valve looks like, but if you really look at my stuff, there's probably room for improvement, especially
I don't know.
when
I
lighting.
think that's imposter syndrome because I think you detail great. There's just like there's a certain level that she hits that is unattainable. So your work is great, and I
Yes,
think
yeah,
you have a slightly more older school style than some of the modern maps that are getting more like higher detailed. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think it's a very beneficial thing to mapping to be able to have that kind of mindset and keep things slimmed down but make them look great. And I think that's what you succeed at really well. I'm definitely in the same boat. I bring her onto my maps because I can't touch her level of detailing at all. So I do the gameplay. I focus on all that stuff. I hand it over to her. She makes this amazing map out of my sloppy brushwork, and then it comes back to me, and I'm like, holy shit, how did you do this? And then I just clean it up and optimize it, and we end up with a really good project. And I think that's another example of relying on people's strengths. Like, I know my weaknesses. I know the things that I'm good at, which is gameplay and finalizing and all the little details. And when it comes to the big concept of the visuals, I'm okay handing that off to someone who's much more talented than I am.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and I'm envious. I think you're doing the right thing at this point. As experienced as you are, is really you're trying to produce the best maps possible. So why not bring together the best team that's out there? And I learned that this time around from you of don't try to do it all. And I don't think this map would have gotten done again if wouldn't have brought in the team that I mentioned. Want to mention you helped a ton with layout feedback in 2016, which I mentioned. getting me back in, advice, just tons of optimization advice. You and I went through a whole day of optimization, was able to get my head right. I'd forgotten a bunch of stuff. So, um, you sent me over a bunch of screenshots. So Crash has been one of the last members that got added, more of an advisory. But again, you guys wouldn't see Extinction today if you wouldn't have encouraged me 6 months ago to get back on.
The student has become the master.
Can we take
I wouldn't go that far with it, but no, I think it was a very cyclical process where I got my start. You really like kicked me in the ass to get going early on, and I felt honored to be able to come back and do that for you, to kick you in the butt, get you going, get you restarted back into the process, give you some new perspective on things, from how things have changed over the years. And I don't know, I was happy to do it. I would very happily do it again. So whatever you got going on. So yeah, so that's about enough about Extinction. Make sure, like we said, you are definitely pushing that for 2023 summer. Cautiously optimistic, of course, but that's definitely your big project.
Yeah, I've been
right
here
now.
before.
Yeah, it's typical for you to be excited about a map and then have your heart
Who knows
broken a little bit.
Who knows what Valve will choose? This is the thing I'll say. There's just a lot of great projects out there. So I can't, obviously I like my stuff, but I hope that Valve picks the best things that they possibly can, and I'm able to get behind some of those. But I favorited a lot of maps out there. There's a lot of great stuff coming out that haven't been mentioned today. DEF CON's Phoenix, for example, great, awesome map, up and coming. That again, I don't want to ignore any of these great projects out there.
Oh yeah. But that said, make sure, if anybody's listening, make sure to go check out the workshop. Vote for the maps that you really like. I'll have a link to Extinction in the description. It's a great map. It plays well. It looks good. There's no reason it shouldn't eventually get in at some point. So I wish you luck on it for sure.
Yeah, and as mentioned, if you have a specific piece of feedback, reach out to me. Let me know. Happy to hear you out and consider the experience that you're having.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I think people don't realize how accessible mappers are. Like a lot of the average players will play a map and then just be like, "Well, I found this, and this. That sucks," and then never talk about it. Like if you just shoot a message to the mapper, they're gonna be super appreciative to get a player's feedback on it.
Yeah, and I find too, some people have seen the pattern that I work through is I'll take some feedback and I'll consider it for a while. It might take a couple of versions before it actually gets put in, because you have to figure out the best way, to incorporate that, or what the problem is. Solve for the problem, not for the feedback. So definitely, I'm always open to any feedback on any of the maps that I have out there.
So do you have any like tips or advice for beginner mappers who are just starting off, like brand new, just going, like maybe just coming off my tutorial series, just wanting to learn? Do you have any like big advice to help kick them in the butt the way you did me?
Yeah, and I'm gonna mirror some of the stuff that I've heard you mention on that channel, which is start small, um, baby steps. I don't actually know how I finished Extinction because it's quite a large bite of things. It just kind of came together in the right way. But start off with a small King of the Hill map. And I know you give that advice all the time. So that's the first thing. To like medium or more experienced mappers, what I find is they build the map from the view of the sky, or from the mapper's view. We as a mapper have a tendency to kind of fly around at this 10 or 20-foot level. I don't know. Depends on the mapper, how you work probably. But you're kind of always flying around it like a bird. So mappers will have a tendency to develop it from that view versus getting down in the where the player is playing from. Each screenshot, in other words, when you spawn that picture, you could almost hit print screen, open it up in an artwork. That opening shot should look like a piece of art, but that goes for every step through every frame of your map. And again, if you're building your map from bird's eye view, you're not going to get those shots. So thirds apply, and Square kept reminding me of all these basic art techniques, but people don't recognize there's something called, we use it in advertising. I have an advertising degree. I've worked in marketing. We'll talk about that here in a second, I'm sure. You have to consider all your focal points, something we use in advertising. So you should have a first focal point, the place where your eyes are go, and then just like a piece of art, your eyes should follow that. Well, those focal points on a map should lead a player. So you can use those through size, color, shape, different things like that. And you have to keep that in mind. And I don't think a lot of mappers are thinking about that so much of where are my focal points as the map as I go through my map. So I think that that's represented well in Extinction. If you load up the map, you'll notice each frame as you kind of go through, there should be a focal point. That was something I was heavily focused on. Those things have some friction when it comes to layout because artistic work and layout have a tendency to compete with one another. You want to make maps open so that you can see everything, but then that creates very bad sniper lines. So then you create walls, but walls can sometimes be ugly. So again, you have to figure out how those focal points are made. So that's my advice to like medium mappers: stop building the view from bird's eye view, get down where the player's looking, and look at each frame as though it's a work of art.
For like longer time mappers, I know this is something I've definitely benefited from myself. But I personally feel like people have a hard time breaking into the next level because of like the marketing side of things, and I feel like that's something that you definitely bring to the table, like, you know, tenfold over the average person. What are some tips that you would have for somebody who has something that's like RC level? They're trying to push it out there. They're trying to make a name for themselves, make a name for their map, and get it. You know, just get the right eyeball seeing it. What do you tell them?
Yeah, definitely. So a good product will sell itself. So you need to figure out how to create that good product. And again, if your shots from the player point of view are all a piece of art, when you fly around your map trying to get those screenshots, you'll have no issues getting beautiful pieces of works of art. So you can do different unique things. I think the Eli Boone trailer that we created for Extinction was a very good trailer. I think you do a really good job of putting together unique trailers, you know, that make people laugh, get people involved. The key is awareness, which is just it's really hard to make people aware of your map. I logged in, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, looked at how many people were playing Team Fortress 2 at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 200,000 people globally were playing Team Fortress 2. So that was just one snapshot of time. So I'd imagine like throughout a month, there's probably about 1 million people playing Team Fortress 2 globally. That's your audience that you have to reach. So you have to think about where are all those people going in and out of, and also you want to reach your early adopters. So those are your custom server owners, the ones that are making custom servers, trying to figure out where they go. So the answer is pretty easy for that. You know, obviously Team Fortress 2 maps. You want to post your map, but outside of that, I think making clever videos and posting those in different social media outlets. Social media is always going to change in the form of it, so you have to be aware of whatever that is. I'm a little old school, so I'm not great with like the TikTok stuff.
Yeah, I'm
I just
miserable at
produced a
TikTok.
YouTube short that like I could tell wasn't the right hit because it's more of a commercial in a TikTok form, and you really need just kind of a short 20-second. You know, I'm thinking more of like cool geyser shot, you know, loop type thing, you know. So I think one of the things that I did, again, I took the Eli Boone video. I'm not completely proud of this because I hate advertising, quite frankly, or advertising to people, but I know awareness is a key factor. And people sharing and resharing things is also beneficial. So we ran YouTube ads, and we're done doing it now. Just had a small $25 budget that we put in, paid $50 for the voice actor, and we produced that video and then advertised it, and ended up reaching about 2,000 people that saw the video. I think 200 of those ended up going to the website and voting, you know, for that. So able to help get awareness out there. I was able to target people with interest of Team Fortress 2 on YouTube, and then targeted just specific English-speaking places that I knew that the ad would go off very well. Eli Boone might not resonate very well with someone that doesn't speak English or understand that kind of like cowboy, you know, Texas, you know, I don't know, maybe it is universal, but I don't want to make that assumption.
Right.
I've done global advertising before. A good example of this for everyone, the words Irish mist you've heard of Irish Mist soap, right?
Yeah.
Crash. Sounds like a cool soap. Well, in Germany, it means horse manure. Translates to like actually horse manure. So they tried to market Irish Mist in Germany, and no one bought it. Why would you buy a bar of soap that says horse manure?
I don't know. It sounds like I really want some poop soap. That's really up my alley. That would be very targeted to my demographic.
So I don't know if I have any German. You have any German listeners? I hope you do. That would comment on this and agree with that. It's something like that. It means manure or something like that. But yeah, no. I think they had to rebrand it to something else that made sense. But Germany is one of the hardest languages to translate in and out of. I've done a lot of translation work, and every time no one gets the English marketing there. So I put that consideration in for something like that. I only have a $25 budget, so you might as well pick specific places. Let's go back to Stoneyridge, some of the marketing that we did there.
Oh yeah, there was some hilarious stuff, honestly, in retrospect.
So we were trying to get Valve's attention, and we did two things. One, we advertised on banner ads across Team Fortress 2 maps by targeting like websites with Team Fortress interests, and we got a lot of response there. It's very cheap to do that, by the way.
Google AdSense, and then I remember at the time people were taking screenshots of TF2 maps. I'm like, why is there a banner for Stoneyridge in the Google ads on top of TF2 maps? And it was the funniest thing.
People don't realize how cheap it is to do it either. This is kind of fun to do. So I think we spent like $25 then, probably, just kind of having fun. The other thing, we ran Facebook ads specifically targeted to Valve employees.
That was funny too, yeah.
Which is something you can't do today. Like the targeting has changed quite a bit. But I'm curious if any of the Valve employees actually saw the ad or not. But
I remember you said we got some impressions too. It was people who had listed that they worked at Valve.
You could see Bellevue, Washington. So we did the same thing this time. The Eli Boone was targeted to Bellevue. In fact, just the zip code for a few days. I'm not sure if any Valve employee saw it there. Sorry if it was annoying, but hopefully some people had fun kind of watching that. And
I think the big thing though too that was important about your ad, like I couldn't just take one of my videos of me just talking about the map, like the video that I put together for Brian. I don't think I could run that as a YouTube ad because it doesn't catch you right away. Like that was the good part about the Eli Boone ad that you put together, is that right away it would catch you, it would drag you in because you wanted to hear what this guy was talking about. It felt like almost like an official release. It felt like, it was properly polished versus someone being like, "Hey, look at my map. I got this thing here. You should check it out." Like it was a good source of advertising that was actually interesting. Like I know I don't think I ever got the ad, but the amount of times you like linked it and stuff like that, I think every single time I clicked on it and I ended up watching the whole thing through because it was a cool video.
Yeah, it sucks you in for whatever reason. It's only a minute long. Again, if you guys haven't checked it out, go check it out.
And I know you had a number of comments on the workshop too of people being like, "I just got an ad for a map on YouTube. What the hell is going on? But this is awesome."
Making little videos like that, you can advertise them out for really cheap on YouTube. Video views cost a lot more, obviously, than banner ads, but it was worth it. And what we saw was, or at least I saw through the data, as people were taking it, posting it on their Discord channels. I was getting a lot of views there. So you might spend 10 cents for one view, but that view then gets repopulated hundreds of times elsewhere.
I think one of the things too is like getting people in early on a map, the people who are actively playtesting custom maps, the people who are actively looking for videos and stuff like that about custom maps. Those are the people who are going to be most interested in these things, and getting them to be kind of early adopters of your project, that then they are excited about it and can help you. And then also you're getting more players. Like the whole goal is to get people to play your map. So if you can get more players who are excited about it early, and then get them to be so excited that they want to go show their friends and they want to play it, then that's a really, really good way to get your map out there. And I think the important thing to note too is the account that you were posting these videos to and you ran the ad from, that was a brand new account. So it wasn't like you had this long history. Like my stuff, I can get a little bit of an audience from all the history of the YouTube videos I've made. I've got that audience built in, but you were coming from it from pretty much scratch. And I kicked it along a little bit with my posting the Extinction trailer on my channel as well. But like the Eli Boone video, that was 100% just yours on a brand new account.
Yeah, no, you're right on. I remember you posting that video on your account, and it harvested about 8,000 views in just a few days, or it's sitting at that now at least. And we had to fight and claw at the walls for the Eli Boone video to get at the like 4,000 collective views across a couple channels that it's on now. I have an old Lego Adventures channel that I post Lego Adventures with my son on that I don't advertise too much, but have been posting a lot of Extinction updates there. That channel has almost 1,000 subscribers. So fortunately, there's a bunch of confused Lego people that watched my video. We got a few views there, but it, for whatever reason, found that TF2 vein. So if you're on YouTube, you'll probably see it at some point in time fed to you. But yeah, it's really interesting how YouTube works. If you've got a following, you can push it out, and YouTube will send it out to the ranks real quick.
And I think it definitely helps, but I at least I wanted to emphasize that you can start from nothing, and you know, it's more work obviously, but it's all about the work you put in early or the work you put in now. So like I've spent a lot of time building up my channel, not just as a way to help people out. Obviously that was a major goal for my channel, was because I when I started my tutorial series, but it's also a way to promote myself as a mapper. And then obviously I can use that to promote my maps and get eyeballs on it. And that's the biggest, the hardest thing for a mapper is when you release a project, just getting people to look at it. You can make the coolest map in the world, but if you're not getting people looking at it, it's not going to be seen.
And I think people give up too. They'll release something, it gets played a little bit, and then they stop beating the drum. So my advice is just like, keep beating the drum. You know, go around to server owners, and if they've got a problem with your map, find out what it is. Be very, if you haven't heard of design thinking, that's something I employ on all these maps. Look it up, you know, Google it. There's tons of YouTube videos on design thinking. It's putting yourself in the eyes of the consumer. You know, in this case, it's being a player. You know, so listen to the players. You know, if you find that they're not playing the map, there's probably something wrong with it. So, and if it's just a trash project, start over again. You know, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. But just keep beating the drum until you find something that people will dance to.
So just I'm kind of curious, how long did you work in marketing? Like, I know you're not actively doing it right now, but like, how many years did you put into marketing? And can you drop any like big name companies? Are you allowed to?
Yeah. So in my 20s, I went up to New York City and joined an advertising company doing traditional advertising. I've done it for about a couple of decades now. Probably the biggest name company that people have heard of is Oracle. I actually worked there for almost a decade, helping them do data and advertising. So I have had a lot of experience with online advertising, executing campaigns. The Fortune 500 companies, I've worked with all of them almost. There's probably like one I haven't worked with, maybe Apple. Have helped them out with all their advertising. So I understand how to apply it really well. And again, it's really cheap. You know, like I said, I got about 2,000 views off the $25 that I spent, you know, just kind of having fun with this Eli Boone video, seeing people respond to it. Even on Twitter, I'm finding comments now of people finding the video. So it's really cool. But yeah, a couple decades now, not actively doing it. Don't plan to go back into it, but plan to employ it on the stuff that I'm doing. Like I said, I'm in the midst of trying to create a tower defense game. So as soon as that's done, you can bet there's going to be a lot of advertising that goes into that, assuming that the game, you know, sells itself.
So moving on from the marketing side of it, what would you say is like your least favorite part about mapping and like the source engine in general? Like, you got any horror stories to share?
I have a lot of anxiety, so I'm always like, just like get there. And probably most mappers are. I find if I can get in the zone and then get stuff built really quickly, it's cool. Hammer crashed on me an average of like 2 or 3 times a day during the cycle. I would love to know when this gets posted in the comments, like how many people experience something like that when you're working like an 8-hour session. How many times does Hammer crash on you? Is this just me? Is this a hey you problem? Like, am I doing something wrong here?
So interestingly, you told me that earlier, and I was actually a little bit surprised because Hammer ++ is a lot more stable than the original Hammer. because that thing would probably crash on you 8 times a session if it wasn't. I would honestly only say I'm probably crashing if I'm putting in like a long day, like maybe once, and usually it's I did something stupid.
Interesting, yeah.
I think there's a lot of that. Like if
I
you do something wrong, it crashes and it punishes you for it. but what that wrong thing is, it's not
So,
going to tell
who
you.
knows?
It's just you got to figure it out.
I've got a few weird triangles built in, which I think it's kind of hard to avoid that for whatever reason. I think I've got 4 that I can't figure out like where they are, how to replace them, but they're somewhere in C. That's my guess, and I think that's probably what's crashing it. You know, now that you say it, but I don't know. I would go for cycles too. Like I would go a week, nothing would crash, and then I would have a day where it would just crash like 8 times in a row. So you know, maybe that's it. And I just came and fixed it somehow. But that's probably one of the most annoying things. Yeah, just the amount of time it takes to build something like this. You wouldn't think looking at a map like this that it takes this long, but just it takes forever.
I would absolutely think it takes that long, but I have firsthand experience. So I'm actually kind of curious what your thoughts are on the limitations of the Source engine. I've actually found like I thrive with limitations. If I have a narrow box, I've obviously find ways to explore outside of that box, but I'm curious what you feel if the limitations have hurt you or helped you.
You know, I don't know if I'm savvy enough to know really that aspect of Hammer really. That's one of the things I should mention. Like my strengths, if that's not apparent at this point in time, is like layout, and then art direction, bringing together big projects, kind of finding the talent, you know, beating the drum for that talent, that type of stuff, which is something that I did at Oracle. Where I'm really weak is any type of engine type stuff, like technical, all the stuff that you're really good at with the like gizmos and gadgets,
The shenanigans.
the shenanigans. Like I suck at that stuff. So Little Boots was actually a major help on some of those, and you too were the other piece that some of the stuff built into the map wouldn't be working today if I didn't have you 2 guys helping me with that. And then I could be stronger at detailing. You know, like I said, I try to be humble there, but it takes me a while to kind of find my way and go, oh yeah, that's what needs to be done here. I'm sure someone could take Extinction and make it like 10 times better than it is now, and I very much recognize that. So kind of scary actually, just the talent that's out there right now.
Right.
that I see.
I'm kind of curious, like what helps you get through to see a map to its conclusion. I honestly feel like it's something that a lot of mappers struggle with. You see a lot of maps just fizzle out in the beta stage and never quite get to the finish line. And I think that's one thing that I've found that I personally am strong at, and that's definitely something you're strong at, is seeing it to the finish line.
You have to have a vision, and you have to believe in that vision. So there wasn't a day that Extinction went by that I didn't believe in the vision. There's this line called inspiration versus discipline, and I find some mappers just kind of get inspired by something. They'll work on it for 2 or 3 weeks. Sorry to call out Little Boots like this, but he's kind of one of those that I'll work with, and early on, he would get inspired, and just kind of go like, I'm kind of bored of this. So
the bursts of attention and focus, and then it fizzles.
So you got to have discipline. There's a lot of days here that I did not enjoy working on this map, and I hate to say that. It's very few, but it's generally any days that you're optimizing it or doing clipping or just like tedious stuff. I hate all the tedious things. I'd rather build like cool structures and ideas and kind of see those things come to life.
You want to spend 8 hours straight doing prop fades?
Right. Which is something actually I need to like slap my hand on. I need to go do a loop on Extinction on all the prop fades. But yeah, just stuff, as you can tell, I haven't done it yet because I hate it. And it's stuff that people don't really notice other than some optimization on frames.
Tapping into the ego side here a little bit. Do you feel like there's anything that defines a map as a Hey You map? I've always heard that people will like look at a map and they just feel like they know which mapper it is if they're like really involved in the scene. What do you feel like is your definitive sort of thing if you have one?
Yeah, you can. I think you can see it potentially. There's probably more of a link between Stoneyridge layout to Extinction than I don't know how you would pull anything from Moonshine to Extinction. But that route of DB Heights, Dust Bowl Heights, me turning that into a payload map has stuck with me, and I think really that's what's rooted in my maps is this like little bit of a Dust Bowl feel, and you can definitely see it in Extinction for whatever reason. I have a hard time accepting some of the newer map layouts. The sight lines are really cut down. That I think that was one of the things I wanted to bring up on Extinction is there's a couple of sight lines that are brought up occasionally, and when you compare it side by side to, I think I gave you a couple of screens you can probably throw up now, to upwards, you find like the length isn't anything different from B. In fact, I use these as kind of justifications. And there's easy ways to actually flank, to some of those sniper positions. But yeah, I think
I want to interrupt you really quick because I heard the marketer in you. You said, I want you to bring up that screenshot, and you snapped. And I'm going to time that perfect. I just want you to know that. You're like, it needs to hit on this beat right here.
Yeah, I think it's that Dust Bowl. I still map like I'm mapping Dust Bowl for some reason. I didn't map
I think
but,
that's definitely something that I think stands you apart from a lot of the crowd is you have the older school mindset. And I've brought this up a few times, and some people are kind of skeptical. They're like, I don't think maps have changed that much. And like, I think there's a pretty dramatic change, and I think finding a way to merge original ideas, the original gameplay concepts with some modern takes, and I think that's what you did that really well with Extinction. Like, there's the openness to it, there's the visuals, but then there's also, there's some chokes, there's some sight lines, there's some things that other mappers might hesitate to put in a map, but I think it makes for a really fun map.
Yeah, snipers got to snipe, like you can't just completely cut them down. So, and by the way, if we saw a problem with it in testing, and again, I was going through like 4 tests a day and making an iteration the next day and go like, hey, here you go, test it again. Here you go, test again. You would see people in those tests switch over to sniper, but you never ever saw that. That's generally the reaction of like, oh, I'm getting my ass handed to me by a sniper. Let me go snipe him back, right? Because it's not that hard to just pop around a corner and snipe someone. But you don't see that. You can watch hundreds of demos on this map, and you don't see. Early on, sure, yeah, we fixed a lot of the sniper problems, but now, no, that's not a problem.
So yeah, this interview has gone on way longer than I originally intended, so we'll wrap this up here pretty soon. But I did have a community question for you. Why the name Hey You? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I kind of wish I'd have gotten something else. I think I mentioned this to you. I cycled through like a month's worth of names. I can't remember any of them except for this one that was SX Robot, which was a referral to the Whitest Kid You Know sketch, Sex Robot. It's like the stupidest sketch you've ever seen. But one of the guys on Penny Arcade was running around as a punching heavy with a medic and punched me, and I think posted a video or a picture of it, and Little Boots told me, I'm like, all right, nope, we're going to change your name. So
you were shamed out of that name? Shamed
out of that name, yeah. So I was being funny and decided to go with Hey You, and it just kind of stuck. And I remember Penny Arcade, I got really good at demo. Someone posted like, hey, this guy Hey You's really good at demo, and I'm like, all right, I gotta stick with that now.
Now you're stuck. And I always bring this up every time we talk about your name, but like we actually did get to meet in person. You and I, we went. Was it PAX 2012? I believe.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the height of Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, so it's PAX East 2012. We both went to that. We got to meet up. We hung out. We had way too many drinks at one point. I know we got to play TF2 like there in the little free play PC area. I got to meet a whole bunch of TF2. Yeah, we did play Stoneyridge. Got to meet a whole bunch of like the people we've been playing with online, and it was just a really, really fun time to get to do that. And one of the other players that we met and was a really common player on the server was named That Guy. And I remember standing there, and it was like side by side, and it was Hey You and That Guy meeting and shaking hands, and I was like, this is the most nondescript meeting of people I've ever seen in my life, and I'm glad I was here for this moment.
It's funny. Yeah, that was a great trip.
That was really fun. It was cool to get to meet too in person and like form that connection outside of just gaming and this crap that we do.
Yes. Yep.
Is Hey You a Pink Floyd reference? Is that originally? That's how I've always assumed, honestly.
No.
What?
God, that'd be a good answer if it was. I've got a Pink Floyd album hanging like 10 feet from me on the wall too. That's what's even worse.
So this whole time you
Um,
had not even been thinking that. I'm kind of upset, actually.
no,
I'm a
not at
little
all.
upset about this answer
Yeah.
now.
That was just more of a funny, like, I heard people on the server going like, hey you, and I was like, oh, I'll just call myself hey you, and yeah, just stuck.
Um, okay, well, that's actually probably about it. I think we'll wrap it up there. I've taken plenty of your time, so I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk. Hopefully, some other developing mappers could learn some stuff from you. I think you definitely bring a very interesting mindset to it, coming from a marketing background. And that's such an aspect that I think people misplace. So I really appreciate you taking the time to explain it to us.
I appreciate you, Crash, and your channel, and having me on here today, and the friendship for the last, God, almost a decade and a half now. So
I know, right?
it's been a long time. So if any mappers need anything, questions, help, whatever, reach out. I'm on Discord on Team Fortress 2 Maps, and always happy to help. And have appreciated the community there. By the way, I've made a lot of friends over the time, and everyone should be proud of kind of what's developed there, and the way everyone works together there. It's awesome.
Pretty dramatically different from the early days, because I remember you pushing me into TF2 maps and warning me about how competitive and aggressive it could be at times. So I'm really proud of where the TF2 maps
Very,
community has
yeah.
come since then too.
I actually wish I had more time to spend there with them, like interacting, but I feel like I unfortunately just kind of put my head down for the last 6 months and focused on trying to get this thing finished. Yeah, cool community there. But Crash, thank you again for today's session. Hopefully this was helpful for people.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming. I will see you in probably another map test here soon.
Sounds good. See everyone out there.